Waqaa, it's Nikki with So Yupik. I'm so thankful you are here with me on all things So Yupik. Today, I want to talk about introductions and why they're important in my Yupik culture. So I want to just say, Juliana, I'm super excited that you're here with me, and as I navigate through this whole journey of podcasting, and so I first want to just start off by introducing myself in my Yupik language. So if you haven't heard of the Yupik language, this is going to sound completely foreign to you, but here it goes. Waqaa Quluqawa mamtritliqmiungunga dawam saldatna mi witatunga anaka gohlok nuna pechormiu ataka dana santaski hlu Michigan Army ubayam narullam hlu tutrakanga nuna pechornik Louis Irene hlu asantaski Michigan Army Yupiugoa. And then I would also share, that's what I would share. So in my Yupik language, I just told you my Yupik name, Quluqaq. I'm named after my Appa's first cousin from Iqmiut, Ik, and I am originally from Bethel, Alaska, but moved to Soldotna, and I introduced my mom and where she is from, my dad, where he is from, my maternal grandparents, where they are from, and my paternal grandparents, and where they are from. And then Yupiugo is I am Yupik. And so as I was thinking about this episode and trying to figure out how can I share some things in my show about being Yupik and how I didn't fully grow up, I guess, the Yupik side of me in the household. I learned my Yupik from school and my family members, and then I took college classes. And so I spoke Yupik early on as a kid from school and remembered it from school, and sometimes I would go out to the village when I was younger and would pick it up. But over the years, I have kind of lost it. And once I started college, I started taking Yupik classes. And so I didn't really know how to introduce myself in my Yupik language until about like 20, when I started college and I took college classes. And so I would have been in my 20s when I did that. And the reason I want to talk about introductions is because they're so important in the Yupik culture, especially when you're traveling and you're going to other villages. Akatamani, long time ago, that is how they connected relations. And if you went to a new village and you went somewhere and you introduced yourself, you would discover that you had family members there and they would open your homes to you. Something I wanted to share, I came across from the book Wise Words of the Yupik People. We talk to you because we love you. I'll share it in the show notes. And this one, Ann Fienup-Riordan and translations from Alice Rearden. It's a really amazing book that has a lot of elders sharing stories. And something that I wanted to share, Paul John spoke in November of 1991, and it says, "We call ourselves Yupit, real people. In our language, Yuk means person or human being. Then we add Bik, meaning real or genuine. We are the real people." And so that's what Yupik translates to. And as I was thinking about the introductions, something that really stood out to me as I was looking at kinships and terms and how you introduce yourself, Frank Andrews said this in September of 2000, and it echoed Paul John's understanding as well, that our elders said, "Llaguk asamek yuituk ilakut guk." The world is not inhabited by anyone else. We are all related. This is what our ancestors constantly revealed to us when they were telling us about Duqlutit. And Duqlutit it's described people's understanding to help identify relatives. And so this is all things so Yupik, and I wanted to just kind of share about my background and introduce you to me, because if you don't know me, I started So Yupik in 2015, and it was just kind of to teach sewing classes across the state of Alaska, and I had started actually just sewing qasbaqs and bags just for fun, and really just kind of took off and started teaching classes. And that's when I really discovered that I love sharing how to sew, and I love sharing how to make qasbaqs, and I love being able to just talk about my Yupik culture, and I have really been able to connect with it over the last 15 years or so. And so if you don't know me, I'm Nikki with So Yupik. I'm all over TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I think that's it. I don't. Oh, and I have a website. And so, but if you don't know me, I am just a small town. I grew up in a small town of about 6,000 people, graduated from high school in 2005. I think we had a class of 40, and pursued all different avenues, trying to figure out what I wanted to become. And I discovered, as a childhood trauma survivor and a people pleaser and an overachiever, that I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I explored so many avenues. Out of high school, I went to massage therapy school, got my massage therapy certificate, and then started my career of being a lifelong college student. I was in college. I'm still in college, but I started college in the fall of 2006, with the exception of taking some years off. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I started going to college to be an elementary school teacher. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and then I'd have summers off, and I would work a massage therapy job, and I thought I had this whole thing planned out. And I was pursuing this for a long time until I finally started working in the emergency room and discovered that I loved being in the hospital, and I loved working with the medical team, and I just loved being in medicine. And so I switched careers to nursing, and that's how I kind of started my road to this nursing path. I'm currently in graduate school to become a family nurse practitioner, with the hopes of continuing on with more schooling and being a functional medicine provider. I'm really passionate about helping people. I learned at a very young age that I just want to help people. And that's just kind of been my goal all this time. And so that's a little bit about me. I have been on my healing journey since, I want to say 2012. 2011 was when I kind of discovered that I wasn't okay, and I didn't know what was going on, but I knew something was up because I just struggled and just had a really hard time trying to figure out life, and turned to alcohol, to help me sort of handle it, which was not a good way to go. And I realized that, but I know at the time that I was turning to alcohol to help me because I was really struggling. And I am now, oh gosh, it's been 11 years now since I've kind of been on this path and this journey to kind of healing my childhood trauma. Of course, when I first started, I thought everything was fine. I'm fine. I don't have any problems. And boy, was I wrong. And so throughout this podcast, I'm going to share what has helped me, what hasn't helped me, and how I have been able to sort of start to repair the hurt and the trauma that was caused. And I hope it will help. But so that's my introduction. I think it's important to know who you are and where you come from. And if you don't know, and if you were like me, I felt lost for so long, and I felt like I wasn't native enough, and because I didn't know how to skin sew, and I didn't know how to make a gurak, which is Eskimo ice cream, and I didn't know how to sew, and I didn't really know how to speak fluent Yupik, and I still don't, I'm not fluent in Yupik. But as I got the courage over the years, I discovered that I'm going to make mistakes along the way, but the biggest mistake that I made was not trying, and I wish I would have tried sooner to just get brave and not care what people thought about my stitching or me trying to speak Yupik or, you know, those kinds of things. And so there was a lot of struggle with my identity, with my cultural identity. I don't know my Polish side. I'd like to learn about it, and that's my goal. If you were looking at a piece of paper and the blood quantum, right? That's a thing now. Whereas before, there was no blood quantum. If you traveled to a village, nobody was like, how much native are you? Or how Yupik are you? Percentages don't matter. In the Western world, people are always like, what's your ethnicity? Or, how much are you? And so it's just a different thing. And so looking at blood quantum, I'm half Yupik, I'm half Polish, I'm split right down the middle. But I used to tell people that, but then over the years, people ask, I just tell them I'm Yupik and Polish, and don't define the percentages of, what blood quantum you are. People don't ask you like, how Caucasian are you? Or so I think that is something that we can, work on as a whole. And so I'm rambling, but I just wanted to share that I have struggled myself with, cultural identity and feeling like I belong. And I remember traveling to the village as a kid and thinking I wasn't native enough. And it was just a weird feeling to feel that way, because, when I travel, it's funny when I travel, because when I would work and I would travel to the villages, I would get mistaken for being non-native and kind of treated, I don't want to say differently, but just treated a certain way until I introduced myself to people. in my Yupik language. And they would just kind of be like, oh, okay. But then when I would travel to different places outside of, Bethel and the villages, I was treated as a native person and kind of witnessed those types of discrimination. And so I've always been kind of in the middle, which is it's kind of interesting to be that way, because I can see both sides of it. And when I would be traveling, and so like here's just like an example of, if you're introducing yourself to someone. So I remember when I would be working and I would be at Grant Air or Raven Air, and I would see people, and there's just this look that yuks give each other. Yuks meaning the, real people. Yuks give each other. There's just this look, and And so usually when you see that look, you go up and you introduce yourself. And so when I would see people that I knew that I remembered from being a kid, I would walk up to them and I'd be like, do you remember me? And they would be like, no. And I'd be like, I would say, Gohlon Banna. And then they would go, oh, Gasaya, or something like that. And they would say, oh, I thought you were Gasayukluten. I thought you were Gasak. Gasak meaning white person. And then it would just change the dynamic because they would kind of look at me with a confused look. And then I would, I would let them know that who I was, Banna is daughter. And so it's just funny, but it's amazing. It's really amazing. Just like the whole Yupik introductions and kinship and terms. There's so much that I won't even dive into because I'm not an expert in that. But something that's really important in our Yupik culture is introductions and knowing, who your parents are, where they're from, and who your paternal and maternal grandparents are and where they are from. And it really shows, who you are. People can place you based on your parents or your grandparents on either side. And so introductions in the Yupik culture are really, really neat. And I just wanted to share that because I think it's really it's something that, in the Western culture, when you're introducing yourself, you say, hi, I'm Nikki. I'm a nurse and that kind of stuff. There's different ways to introduce yourself in the Yupik culture versus the Western world. And the differences are kind of way different. And so I thought that this would be a great way to introduce myself to you. If you don't know who I am, if you do know who I am, Waqaa, I'm glad you're here. Again, please let me know what you'd like to hear on my podcast. I am just, like I said, I'm super excited. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm kind of figuring out as I go. I was really nervous to start it because I'm a perfectionist and I wanted it to be perfect. And obviously that's not going to happen. And so just please let me know what you think. Be honest. I'm open to constructive criticism, but if you have mean things to say, just don't say anything at all. So anyways, Goyana Chuck Norris. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. You can find me on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And please let me know, leave me a rating. Let me know what you think. Again, Goyana Chuck Norris, as always, I hope you have a good day. Dohlu.